And here we go. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, welcome to Torn Book Club on this March 1st of 2015. Uh, I'm Sarumann, your host, and with me is Eve. Welcome back, Eve.
Hello. Hi, everybody. It's good to be back.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you back. People have missed you. I've missed you.
I missed you too.
Aw. So before we get too much into the show, Eve has a special announcement that just happened today. If you want to talk about it a little bit.
Well, I became an aunt this morning, so I'm a little bit distracted. My sister was due in a week, but she went into the hospital and had her baby, and it's totally topical because his name is Balin, which I'm assured is not after Game of Thrones or The Hobbit.
Or The Hobbit.
And it's spelled Balen.
Okay.
But I think the comparisons are inevitable, and her husband is an old Lord of the Rings fan who was really lobbying to name the child Thorin.
But still, a little Balin is nice because in The Hobbit it's within.
He also already has a cousin named Arwen, so
okay.
I think they'll be hearing about this. But yeah.
Yay, that's so cool.
So I'm an aunt.
That's awesome.
I'm a little excited.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I'm an uncle twice, and it was like, even though it was on the other side of the country, it was still super exciting.
This is on the other side of the country.
Yeah, so you got to sit here and
which is maybe just as well, at least for the show, because if she had the baby this morning unexpectedly here, I might be in the hospital right now.
Yeah, you would not be here, and we would totally understand that. But that's so cool. What is Temple saying? My 5-year-old nephew reads to me over Skype. Oh, yeah. That is adorable.
We told my sister she finally had to cave and get a smartphone now that the baby was coming, so that we'd be able to FaceTime and Skype and see what's going on. And she finally did cave. So
yeah, I do that with my niece and nephew too. It's really
so
fun.
Nice about technology. You know, this morning my brother-in-law was sending a couple of pictures from the hospital. And he couldn't get them. My mom couldn't get them on her phone, and my other sister lost her phone, so she's on a dumb phone right now. So it was like he was sending them to me, and I was putting them on email and emailing them to everyone else. And we're like, wow, this is complicated. And I'm like, but several decades ago, he'd have been going down and getting the phone and being like, operator, please connect me to Chicago.
Yeah.
Or pulling out the parchment and being like, I am pleased to inform you all of the healthy birth. And like 6 weeks later, we might all hear about it.
Yeah, well, I think when my niece was born, I got a text message. But
well, I was getting text messages too. But I also got a phone call from my mother, who was very excited.
Yeah, I got a phone call later, but I think my sister texted me just to let me know the new child is in the world now.
Yay.
So that's
now I'm going to try not to let that consume me for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
We have important things to talk about.
We have a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm going to talk briefly about our big event last week, just as a little bit of a recap, which was the One Last Party. And I love this picture. This was taken by one of our staffers, Ashley, who is actually a professional photographer.
I can tell. That's really nice.
She took thousands of pictures at the party, and she's still parsing them all, but she put a couple teaser pictures up on the site a couple days ago. And that's probably one of my favorite ones. I know that you weren't able to make it, Eve, unfortunately.
No, I couldn't.
But I know a number of people in the chat.
I will regret forever.
Yeah. Well, until the next one.
until the next last party.
Yeah, the next last party, of course. Yeah. So I know that there are a couple people in the chat who were at the party who I had the pleasure of meeting, or for the first time, or for the second or third time. Like Light of the King was there, and she actually got me a T-shirt, which I was going to wear today, but I felt that this was more appropriate for the for the topic, which is role-playing games, and this is my special supporter T-shirt for the web show Tabletop, which is hosted by Will Wheaton. It's on the Geek and Sundry channel, and it's Will Wheaton playing various tabletop games with lots of other celebrity friends, and it is supremely entertaining and incredibly educational. It's gotten me into so many different games.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
So yeah, Light of the King, I am sorry, I will wear your shirt next week. She got me this wonderful shirt that just says, "The book was better."
Oh, nice.
also met Dwina for the first time at at the party, and she's very charming. It was delightful to meet her. But yeah, I was running around crazy like all night long.
I'm sure.
But it was I said it before. We had a whole episode on a Torn Tuesday where I went over it with Cliff and Justin. So I won't spend too much time on it, but I can't stress enough just what a great group of fans and volunteers we have at the One Ring, because everybody came together and pulled off this amazing party in the span of just a couple of months. Because until we met the goal on the Indiegogo campaign, we didn't know whether or not we were going to even have a party. So, and we didn't hit the goal until maybe a month or two before the party was actually scheduled to happen. And suddenly we were like, oh God, now we need to do this. And Green Dragon, who was our fearless leader in the whole thing, she spearheaded the Indiegogo campaign, and the entire party itself. And she rallied the troops. I was in charge of organizing everybody, and like everybody was making the jokes about how it's like cat wrangling or cat herding, but it's really not with Torn, because everybody is willing to chip in, everybody's willing to help out, everybody wants to make this as great an event as possible. So everybody was like at the top of their game that night and going up to it. So it's very gratifying. It made me feel like I wasn't working. So I actually felt guilty by the end of the night. And I think somewhere in there, I think Rovandir was saying, Josh, you must have slept well that night. Actually, I didn't, because I didn't get home until about 4 in the morning.
Well, I think that was what Dwina or someone then said. Like, I think the night of the party was pretty short because of the cleanup. So maybe the night after the night.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I got to sleep. I got home at about 4, and then we had to be back at the Legion Hall at 7 the next morning for teardown. So yeah, it was a busy weekend. It was a tiring weekend. I'm still like actually physically injured from it. So that's the one party, the one last party. I enjoyed it. We all enjoyed it, and I have a couple gifts for you from the party, because since you weren't able to make it, I snagged for you one of our goodie bags.
Oh, that's awfully nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's so cute.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff in it. It's mostly flyers and stuff like that, but we have a special OneRing.net stress ball.
I see. Which I imagine the OneRing.net staffers were squeezing quite a bit that week.
Oh yeah. I believe Dwina was helping us stuff these bags, so she's very familiar with everything that went in there.
Nice.
And also, this is one of the centerpieces from the dining room.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Now, I did my best to try to keep the flowers alive.
Wow.
Didn't succeed all that well, which is why I'm better as an uncle than a father. But I mean, when it falls apart, you can empty it, and you have a mug to use.
No, that's so pretty, though. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much. We'll put it right here.
Okay.
Or no, wait. Just try to see where we can put it where it won't be in the way of everything. There we go.
Okay.
Just put it right there.
There you go. Excellent. There you go. And I have one for myself.
It goes
as well,
right off the side of the book.
Yeah. I have one for myself too, because I'm not going to turn away a free mug.
No.
So moving on from the one last party, there's also some sad news that hit the geek world earlier this week, and I think most of you know what that is. And that is the passing of Leonard Nimoy. He passed away this past Friday, and it was great to see just the outpouring of emotion and support from the geek community, because he was a very big figure, not just with Star Trek, but with like all of geekdom. And of course, Tolkien fans know his Ballad of Bilbo Baggins, which lives in our hearts forever.
Forever and ever.
And I was asked to write a a remembrance of him for the One Ring, but I couldn't because, as Legolas put it, the grief was still too near. Because Nimoy, he meant a great deal to me because of his portrayal of Spock, um, and his own interior battle with his emotions and using logic and reason to overcome them. And that was something that helped me through some very troubling times in my own life. And so I kind of modeled a lot of my own mentality after Spock. So it was very difficult for me uh, to come to writing about Leonard Nimoy objectively. So I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to write a remembrance about him that would turn out to be more about me. Um, but Demosthenes wrote a very good um, announcement and obit that summed up his career very well. Um, and yeah, as we all know, I'm a huge Star Trek fan up here. I don't think people can see it on the screen, but up there is a framed picture of the cast of Star Trek. Mm-hmm. That was a housewarming gift from my parents.
Yeah, I mean, I started watching the original series movies when I was a kid, so it's been important to me for a long time in the original series, and Spock in particular. As I said on my Facebook when it happened, like, I have a Spock drinking glass that lives on my nightstand, and so it was really nice to see all the memories that exploded all over my Facebook that day. Just everybody posting links to clips and to commercials and to scenes from Star Trek and to scenes from other shows that referenced him, and just to see, like, this is the impact that his career had and that his work had and that the character had and on me and on the people that I care about. So, I mean, you can't really argue. He did live long and prosper.
No, he definitely did.
Even if it wasn't long enough.
But. And Temple is saying, I've been in a bit of a funk about Nimoy all weekend. I watched some of the Star Trek movies yesterday. Yeah. I still haven't been able to bring myself to watch any of the movies, just because I know, like, Wrath of Khan would hit me very hard, and even Search for Spock would hit me very hard. And Voyage Home, which was written and directed by Nimoy, like, even that, I'm like, oh man, he's everywhere on this thing. I can't, like, it would be very hard. So I haven't really brought myself to watch much Star Trek yet. As one of my first Star Trek memories was actually the first movie that I ever saw in the theaters was Search for Spock. I was too young for Wrath of Khan, so I saw that on TV. But Search for Spock was the first one that I actually got to go see in the theater and see the Enterprise and the crew and everybody on the screen, on the big screen for the first time, and it blew me away.
Rovandir said, I wanted to watch some Star Trek yesterday, but kind of ended up gaming all night instead. Glad I have tomorrow free. Well, that's topical too.
Yeah, that's topical, and we'll get to that soon enough. Temple saying, as did not watch Khan and Search, watch Voyage Home and Six. Undiscovered Country. And those are both excellent movies. And, like, I would even say, like, at least character-wise, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, has some really good character moments. It's a terrible, terrible movie.
It's a terrible movie, but it does have some good character moments for Spock.
Like, I really enjoyed the camping scene in the beginning with Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. just to see the three of them bickering was just so much fun.
I feel like the scene on paper is a stupid scene, but the three of them sort of saved it.
Yeah.
Just being themselves.
Yeah, and then the scene where Spock has his flashback to when he was born. Like, that was actually a pretty moving scene.
It was, and his response to it too. It's just,
Yeah. So yeah.
Mr. Nimoy, you will be missed.
Farewell, Mr. Nimoy. Thank you for all the great memories. Thank you for all the great influence. There will never be your like again. So, on to happier stuff. Let us move on to some happier subjects here. So before we get into the main part of the program, there is, of course, it's a new month, which means a new book of the month. And since this is March, which is the month that the One Ring was destroyed, we're going to be going a little more Middle Earthy. We're gonna stick with Middle Earth, and so our book of the month for March is Middle Earth Madness, which was written by many of the staffers at theonering.net.
What do you know?
How about that? It was compiled by it was edited by a writer named J.W. Braun, and there are probably, I think, 9 staffers who contributed to this book, and it's various essays on Middle Earth, what it meant to us, all of our various associations with it, analyses of Lord of the Rings. There's some great book stuff in there. So in April, April 5th, we'll be having our discussion of Middle Earth Madness with as many of the authors as I can get to show up. So that's
Oh,
March.
Light the King already has it.
I imagine quite a few people already have it. Some of the contributors are Kelly Rice, who is Keely on Happy Hobbit, who is at this very moment winging her way to New Zealand for a month. So.
Oh my gosh! Really?
Yeah.
Jealous.
Jealous, but I'm very excited for her. And Clifford Broadway, who we know is the host of Torn Tuesdays, MC of all of our great events. And who else? And Kirsten, Green Dragon, she also contributed to it. I did not.
So it's not worth reading.
Well, it's actually because I'm a terrible writer and I don't want to subject anybody to that. So.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Ava saying, I hope there's a digital copy available. I don't think my local library has that book.
Someone said they had it on Kindle.
Yeah, it is available on Kindle. It's also available in print if you want to go that route. And I'll be posting some links to that on our Facebook page and on our Twitter. But yes, there is a Kindle version, and that's what I'm reading right now, actually. And yep, Temple's saying available on Kindle for $2.99. So it's a good deal.
$2.99 might be a deal breaker. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I could halfway go through McDonald's for that.
I know, right? So
awesome.
So we'll be delving into some more Middle Earth topics during the month of March. I have yet to decide what those are, but I got a week to come up with something for next week. So plenty of time. I run a tight ship on this show. Hello, Stephanie Love LOTR.
Hello.
Well, welcome to the chat. Welcome to the book club. Now that we've gone through all of that, we can actually get into what we're here to talk about today, which is role-playing games.
Woohoo!
And I bring this up because there is a great
disturbance in the force.
Now, there's a great element to of interactive storytelling that happens with role-playing games, and what I like is what I like about role-playing games is that you really do sort of create your own story. And I know plenty of people who have gone through a campaign or a session and enjoyed it so much they actually started writing a story. They started writing stories about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I, we met through a role-playing game, didn't we? Yeah, through a
Firefly role-playing game.
A Firefly role-playing game.
Yep.
Yes, I was playing a writer who was my character was a writer who knew nothing of the verse, was just totally ignorant to everything going on around him, and was consistently getting punched by one of the other characters. And your character was
my character was a pre-teenage thief who was stowed away on the ship and ended up becoming fairly useful to the crew.
Yeah. And
for keeping herself from getting thrown out an airlock.
Yeah, and you had like some sort of like Firefly version of the bag of holding.
Oh yeah, I think it sort of started out as a joke, but it was so much fun because. So my character kind of traded off on being cute. Like she was really probably too old to get away with it, but she was really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So she would get away with looking really cute and harmless. So at one point somebody gave her a teddy bear, or I think she won one at a game, or somebody won one and gave it to her.
Mm-hmm.
But she started hiding things inside the teddy bear, and before we knew it, she was hiding things in there that were way too big. Like I never bought any bag of holding or anything that would have legally allowed me to be doing this. But the next thing we knew, she had
so
like engine parts in there and weapons and like carrying it around like.
And that became the joke. Whenever anybody needed something, it's like you would be
like,
like, "I'll check my teddy bear. It might be in there."
Roll for it. Yeah, that's in there. Sure. What, entire 7-course meal? Oh, right
here.
Got it right here.
That was a fun game.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a really fun game.
And so we're now into different role-playing groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in a group that is doing 2 games. We're doing Changeling, The Dreaming, which I think somebody up there mentioned Masquerade, Vampire the Masquerade. This is done by the same people.
I LARPed Vampire in college.
Ooh, wow.
That was a fun one.
I never actually LARPed it. I read the guide, wanting to do it, but never quite got a group together. But eventually, I ended up working on the DVD of the TV show based on it, Kindred the Embraced. So, kind of got my fill.
Suzanne wants to make sure everyone knows that RPGs were created because of Lord of the Rings.
And this is true.
Yes, a lot of the RPG conventions, especially with Dungeons and Dragons, are based on Tolkien's work.
Yep. And I haven't read too many interviews with Gary Gygax, but I'm pretty sure that he referenced Lord of the Rings quite heavily as an influence for Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, there was a webcomic, and now I'm blanking on the name of the webcomic, but an older man gave his younger coworker Lord of the Rings to read because the movies were about to come out, and he said, "I don't want your first impression to be based on the movies. Read the wonderful works of Tolkien and blah blah blah." And the kid reads them, and he comes back and he's like, "This Gandalf guy he's a standard wizard, and hobbits are just halflings, and I'm sorry, but this Tolkien kid is a hack."
And Suzanne is pointing out that the first version of D&D was sued because of their use of the word hobbit, which is very interesting.
Or the word hobbit.
Well, no, that was a misspelling.
Yes, I know. So, halflings then.
Yeah, they're halflings now. And Changeling also has hobbits in it.
Does it?
Yeah, they're a group. They're actually called Boggins.
Boggins.
But they're essentially hobbits. So Light of the King is saying, okay, since I'm only 1 year old in the fandom world, what kind of games are role-playing? Is it like you all get together in person, or is it online?
There's lots of different ways to do it. The traditional way is to get a bunch of people together around a table, and one person is the DM or the game master, the dungeon master, and they create the story, and everyone creates their own characters, and the game master kind of presents a scenario, and each person reacts as their character would react in turn, and you have combat, and you get into situations, and have to talk yourself out of situations or fight yourself out of situations.
Yeah. And the big device in all of them is, of course, bring it up here. The dice. The dice.
The dice. The almighty dice.
Which can make or break a game.
Yes. It can also make them really, really funny.
Oh, God, yes.
Some of the best gaming stories come from failing really, really badly on your dice roll.
I saw a great meme of somebody rolling a 1 and then creating the situation of you...
Sorry, Suzanne.
Oh,
Eve, tell us about the game you're involved in now. Listens rapturously.
Gee, I wonder why she's asking about that.
I don't know. She certainly has nothing to do with it.
No, not at all.
We'll get there. We'll get there, Suzanne.
So the meme that I saw was actually like from a Tumblr post where it starts with somebody rolls a 1 and it says, you sneak up on the orc, ready to attack, rolls a 1. You gently caress his back. And then, of course, Tumblr being Tumblr, they keep going and going with it with like just a series of people rolling ones in this situation. The orc is confused, turns to punch you, rolls a 1, and slightly caresses your cheek. After a year and 21 rolls, the orc and the ranger were sitting in their lovely home in the suburbs, thinking back on the old days.
That's amazing. Like, the dice are not the same for all the different games. There are a million different systems.
Yeah.
And there are a million different kinds of dice. And, like, Dungeons and Dragons uses every size of die, basically. It's like 4, 6...
There's
12,
20-sided,
10.
There's 8-sided, there's
100-sided.
There's 3-sided. So, and
there's
of course,
percentage dice. There's a lot.
Yeah, of course. There's also the 6-sided.
Yes,
which
and the
everybody
game
knows.
that I'm in now, Champions, uses only 6-sided dice.
Why don't you tell us about the game you're in? Because Suzanne wants to.
Champions is the most fiendishly complicated system I have ever encountered ever. We've been in this game for over 3 years, and I still don't know how to play my character.
Has it been 3 years, really?
Yes,
oh
it
my
has
God.
really been. We started the Champions after our Firefly campaign wrapped up. It's with several of the same people and a couple.
Wait, we wrapped up the Firefly campaign 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know, right?
Wow.
So bizarre. So, yeah, that was a long time ago. But we've been playing Champions for over 3 years, and I still don't know how to roll my own character. I mean... Basically, I'm like, I want to do this. Suzanne, tell me how to do it. What do I roll? Did I explode something? Did something good happen? Do I want to roll low or high? Remind me, low or high? How do I do initiative? I don't know how the system works anymore. It's incredibly math intensive, and that is not my strong point as a player.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to have people in the group who are better at the math side of things, so I can do that. So I can be like, this is what I want to do. Help me, tell me what to roll, and do the math for me, and tell me if I succeeded.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I'm better as an actor. I'm better at the role playing side of things, and one of the reasons I really like the campaign I'm in now and the Firefly campaign is that they're very role playing heavy.
Yeah.
Some games are very like roll the dice, succeed or fail. Everything's very by the book.
Yeah.
But
that's how it was when I played D&D. Our DM was very by the book, and kind of made the whole experience very not fun.
Yeah, and campaigns that are by the book don't have to be bad campaigns either.
No,
they can be very straightforward, and some people are less comfortable with the more creative, free-flowing side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I like a game where it's more about the storytelling and how well you act out your character in the certain circumstances, because that's where I'm much more comfortable.
Someone's saying, okay, Ustream hates me. I had to watch a 3-minute video on how to do a ponytail. Like, I don't know how to do a ponytail.
Wow.
Huh. There's nothing I can do about that. But those are the ads, and
That's
yeah,
bizarre.
Ustream is weird.
How to do a ponytail?
Why does it take 3 minutes?
I don't know.
What are they doing?
Elaborate ponytail?
I don't know. Maybe if it was braided, maybe.
Maybe it was a flippy ponytail.
Maybe, I don't know.
That shouldn't take 3 minutes. Anyway.
So yeah, one of the things that I love about role-playing games is just the storytelling aspect of it, and how it can start in a certain place, but they don't. But it doesn't usually stay there. Like, it'll go in all sorts of weird directions. Like the one that we're about to start, Changeling, the Dreaming. It was our GM, who is really good, and he's actually a writer for Geek and Sundry.
Oh, really?
So, he's also a really big gamer. And with Changeling, the way it's working is he wants us to really create, really get into our characters and sort of drive the story that way. So we did our character creation last week. So this is all like brand new stuff. And so I'm putting my character together. I'm deciding what family he's from, what kith he's from, which is sort of like his species. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I realized about halfway through it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm making the Doctor.
Nice.
He's a storyteller and an adventurer. He's very lucky, and he also has a little bit of a hoity-toity attitude about him. So I'm like, yep, this is the doctor. This is going to be fun.
Nice.
um,
No, my champions character is with this one, because the system is so difficult. Our GM actually he said, "What sort of character do you want?" And then he went off and created the characters for us, and then which I was grateful for, because character creation, math of character creation, is not my favorite part. So, but my character ended up being a kind of a mutant with an evil twin sister. And evil identical twin. So she's going through the entire game with people mistaking her for the evil one. Until she just got like, I'm the good twin tattooed on her forehead. But it's been fun, because of course with the campaign being what it is, the PCs have ended up in a kind of a confrontation with the evil twins' evil organization. And
Now you should mention that PC stands for player character.
Yes.
Which is a character that somebody is playing, as opposed to an NPC, which is a non-player character, which is a character that the GM will create to sort of move the story along, or to create a situation that the characters then need to get themselves out of.
Yes.
For some reason,
we're still talking about the ponytails.
Everybody's talking about Chris Pratt when he French braided that PA's hair in the middle of an interview.
They figured if the ad had Chris Pratt showing him how to do a ponytail, it would have been fine.
Well,
totally worth the 3 minutes.
Well, absolutely, because Chris Pratt is the perfect human being.
Well, sure.
Sure. The Game Master had named the evil twin Destiny, Susanna is saying. So
I named my character Cassandra.
Okay. So with the storytelling aspect, I brought out this other game that I have, which is not really a role-playing game. It's more of a tabletop game.
I have that game.
Yes. It's called Gloom, and I bring this one up because this is actually a storytelling game. And I had to put the cards in a bigger box because I got some expansions.
I need to do that too. I just got a couple expansions for it.
Yeah.
But Gloom is really fun.
Yeah.
And actually, our GM for Champions is really good at Gloom.
Oh yeah, yes. I would imagine so. He is a great storyteller.
He is.
The way Gloom works is you have all of these. You have a family of characters.
Freakish characters.
Freakish characters. Well, the game calls them misfits, and the object of the game is to play various cards on them that create situations for them that you then have to explain, or you have to create a story around these situations. And all these different cards will either raise or lower that character's self-esteem.
Or misery.
Or misery, however you want to call it. The way these cards work is once they get down to a certain level, like however low you want to make them, you then have the option of killing them.
Yeah, the goal of the game is to make your characters as miserable as possible and then kill them while making other people's characters happy.
Yeah.
So the people whose characters die the unhappiest wins.
And so the way you play it is the game ends once an entire family dies, then the game ends.
Right.
And everybody tallies up all of their negative self-esteem points, and whoever has the lowest wins.
Stephanie, I wouldn't say that Gloom is a good starter game for RPG. It's basically a different approach.
Yeah,
it's also a storytelling game.
Yeah, it's much more a storytelling game. I think it's a fun tabletop game for people who are imaginative. And it might be a fun game to try with people who do feel intimidated to try RPGs, but I wouldn't say it's a good kind of trainer for RPGs, exactly. Yeah. What would you consider a good trainer game for RPGs? Well, if people are anime fans, Big Eyes Small Mouth is a very simple role-playing system. Okay. You only have 3 stats. It's called the tri-stat system. Like basically every kind of system has different ways you determine whether you win or lose your rolls, and it's about your character's endurance, your character's strength, your character's intelligence, your character's whatever. Big Eye Small Mouth just has body, mind, and soul. And every roll is based on body, mind, or soul. So it's very straightforward. Okay. And that was what we played in college, and
not very math adept me had no problem with that one. I created my characters, played my characters with no problem. So that one, it's very simple and it's a good one to cut your teeth on. Plus, it's a flexible system, so like you can create a magical girl game or a giant robot game or a flying airships game or a medieval game. There's stuff for all of that. Anything that there's in their anime series of.
Yeah.
You can create their big eyes.
Now, Light of the King is asking a very good question. Do a lot of games stem from books? A good number of them do.
Books and TV shows.
Books, TV shows, video games. The last campaign I just did with this group was based on the video game Dragon Age, which I think would also be a pretty good gateway RPG because the system is very simple. The only dice you need are 3 6-sided dice, so you don't need like a whole bunch of different type of dice that you need to go to a specialty store to find or order online. And yeah, of course there is the classic Middle Earth role-playing, which was actually the first game I ever played.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And this
I haven't done Middle Earth role-playing.
It was pretty intense.
I would.
It was, because this was it was created back in the 70s, I think. So it was it was a little bit more underground than Dungeons & Dragons was. And it was a very, very math-heavy system, so it was very hard for me to sort of get my head around it because I started playing it in high school. And when you're a teenager, math is the last thing you want to deal with. But yeah, I would say if there's a popular book series or a TV series or a video game series, odds are somebody somewhere is probably trying to make some sort of role-playing game out of it. There's the one based on Firefly, which is tons of fun.
There are games out there based on a lot of the popular pop culture. There's a Supernatural game, there's a Battlestar Galactica game, there's a Doctor Who game. Almost any popular genre TV series or movie series, there's going to be a system based on it.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily all good. The Firefly one is. The Serenity role-playing system is good.
Yeah,
and it wasn't too hard to figure out either.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Firefly one. I would say that one might be a good gateway because it's more story-based and not so math-based. And it's very free and open.
Sure. And then there are systems like Big Eyes, Small Mouth or Champions, which are based around a genre. Like anime for this one, or, Champions is based on superhero comics. So that one also has a lot of flexibility as far as what sort of characters and what sort of campaigns I think you can create. But it is much more math intensive.
Yeah.
Much more math. I shouldn't whisper, the mic won't pick it up. Much more math intensive.
No, the mic is pretty sensitive, don't worry.
Okay.
And Suzanne is saying also, if there's a Doctor Who game, who can you be unless you're a companion?
That is a very good question, and I haven't actually looked at the system.
I
have the same question, and I
haven't either. I mean, I know it exists, but I haven't really looked into it. And Rovandir has been talking about Vampire the Masquerade quite a bit, which is a live-action role-playing game.
It isn't always. I mean, I think Vampire you can also play a tabletop game.
I think there's a tabletop version.
Okay.
The one that I was introduced to was the LARP version.
Same here.
LARP standing for live action role play, where you don't sit around a table, you actually dress up and you embody that character and you actually go out and play these roles.
It was really darn fun. We got a conference room in a hotel near my college and we meet up there, and we had people who wanted to play politics and they would play the political ones and do all sorts of crazy political maneuverings, and we had people playing weird artist characters, and I usually chose to play someone neurotic. So that if I ever got bored during the evening, I would just have some sort of a major freak out in the middle of everything. Hide under a table, get locked in a closet, set things on fire, not literally though. But it's really fun. It's really fun.
Suzanne is saying most people have seen this at Renaissance fairs.
Yes.
And yes, that's true. Although I think in Renaissance fairs it's more just playing the character, not really doing so much the gaming.
Sure.
In certain aspects, I'm sure that there is LARPing that happens at Ren fairs.
Yeah, it's role playing. But it doesn't have the system and stats and combat based on numbers.
Right.
It's a different sort of. I mean, and role playing also comes in other forms like that, like the characters at Ren Fair, or if you're a serious cosplayer at a convention and you're doing a sketch at the masquerade, or you're just being
Suzanne
character.
just said Barry is listening now, so watch what you say.
I don't think I've said anything that I haven't said to Barry's face.
Okay.
It's an awesome system, and actually it's a really awesome campaign because Barry, who is our GM for Champions, has been running games in the same universe that he created for years.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is very well established. There are
Yeah.
characters from previous campaigns who are like mentioned as notable figures or who have appeared as NPCs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very rich world, and I really appreciate that about it.
Yeah, and I should also mention that Barry was the character who kept punching
Who
out
kept
my character
punching Josh's character in the face.
in the Firefly game.
Yeah.
So that's how we met.
Yeah, he kept threatening mayhem on my character too, but I think he secretly liked her.
Yeah. I think everybody secretly liked your character because you had the teddy bear holding.
Some more secretly than others. Well, she was awfully cute.
Light of the King is asking, when did some of these games come into being? Was D&D the first one? I don't know if D&D was like, I don't know if it was like technically the first, but it was definitely the one that popularized it.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's sort of D&D established the basic rules and the basic engine that a lot of other games would sort of base themselves around. And so yeah, I think like, I mean, I don't know my gaming history as well as I might, but I believe that the D&D, if not the first, was definitely the one that brought it more into the mainstream. Because I know that there were games. I think that this predates D&D, Diplomacy, which
I don't know that one.
I don't know if it's so much a role playing game, but it's what it was. It's like this big tabletop game where you're basically diplomats, and part of how it was originally was like you had to write down your moves and give them to people. So it was a very intricate game. Suzanne is saying yes, a version of D&D was one of the first, and the math was intensive even back then, and was only really only intended for college students to play.
Huh.
Interesting.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you. I figured if anybody would know, it would be Suzanne and or Barry.
And Barry, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we were talking earlier a little bit about.
Okay, so Barry is saying the first RPG was Chainmail, a proto RPG, which I honestly I've never heard of it. But
neither have I.
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah.
Barry is definitely the expert on this, and I'm glad that he's in the chat via Suzanne.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some board games are precursors to RPGs too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like Risk. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, a lot of board games, and especially now, are embracing that kind of storytelling aspect.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like that, I love tabletop gaming now. Like I love playing Talisman, which is it's kind of RPG like, but it's very simple, and all your characters are pre-made, and the goals are all the same, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. We were talking also about RPGs online, and I've done a lot of online role-playing, which is not so much based on dice rolling. It's based on storytelling, strictly on storytelling and on writing. So you have your own character or characters, and you write interactively with other people. So they'll write a section for their character, and then you'll write your character's response. And that's something that I've been doing since college, sometimes with established characters from different shows or different books or different whatever, and then other times with original characters. And sometimes my tabletop characters, like Josh was saying, people will sometimes take their tabletop characters and write about them afterwards. I have definitely brought mine into online role-playing games and continued their stories in there, and sometimes they've gone in directions that they never would have gone in the context of their tabletop campaigns. So
yeah, and Suzanne is making the point at gaming conventions, card games are considered board games when you categorize them because you need a table, which is why we sort of have the new category, the new more all-encompassing category of tabletop gaming, which I kind of prefer because I like board games and I like card games, and I like to play both, and so I like that they're both sort of in their own all-encompassing genre now. Like Gloom is a card game.
Yeah, Magic the Gathering, which was mentioned in the chat before, is a card game.
Yes.
It's one that I have played once. I would really like to learn it.
I played...
When I was in high school, there were people who played it, but they wouldn't teach a girl how to play it.
Huh. Well, I played it a lot in college.
It's very sad.
Those jerks.
They were.
Those absolute jerks.
I know.
I played Magic a lot in college, but that was back when the system was a lot simpler. As they kept expanding it over the years, they kept adding in new rules and new tweaks to the system, and from my perspective, I felt that it overcomplicated it too much. I sort of liked the simplicity of the original version of it. Mm-hmm. But it's still a fun game, and I think I still have my old cards somewhere. I actually do have, and they're actually in a box in the trunk of my car right now, cards from the Middle-earth card game, which predates the movies.
Okay. I have a handful of cards from the Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit movies that I got either as gifts from people or from going to Denny's while they were doing their promotional thing. But I don't really know what to do with them except collect them.
Yeah.
I definitely don't have enough to play any sort of a game, even if...
I've got enough to play games, but
It'd be interesting to see the pre-movie.
It's very cool. Like when we're done this, I'll go down and grab them and show them to you because I don't want to do that in the middle of the show and just leave you here talking by yourself.
Talk about my nephew some more. No.
But what I like about that one is all the artwork on it is like from John Howe, Alan Lee, Ted Nasmith, like all the great Tolkien artists.
That's gotta be pretty.
So they're very pretty cards, and the system is a little complicated, but not so much that you can't figure it out. Susanna's saying you might want to move those flowers
too high up, I guess.
in front of the mic. Okay. All right. So they quit attacking your face. Well, yeah, we don't want that because you have a beautiful face. So.
How do you know that wasn't my intention, Suzanne?
Aw, stop it. Light of the King is saying, so in an RPG, you would wear a costume and have props, etc. In a LARP, in a live-action role-playing game, you would, yes.
Yeah, when you're just doing tabletop, not usually. Although a lot of us will kind of...
Sometimes people will wear, like hats or something.
Well, like, one of my friends in the Champions game plays a character that's very much like Captain America. He's a little dumber than Captain America, but personality-wise, he's a lot like Captain America. And he usually comes wearing a Captain America shirt. Plus, Suzanne, at one point, gave us all, like, little themed gifts for our characters. So he has a little toy Captain America shield.
Oh, nice.
And since my character has a Cyclops-style visor and I-beam powers, I now have, like, a little pair of sunglasses that looks like a visor. And kind of makes me look like a Terminator when I put them on.
Yeah.
So we had a character who had a hat that when he wore it, his face would be magically cast into shadow, so you couldn't see it. So he actually had a hat with a piece of fabric around the brim, so that when he put it on, you couldn't see his face. So he would wear that when he was doing his campaign.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to, but it's fun.
Yeah, and like Suzanne said, you can, but you don't have to for the tabletop RPGs. When you're LARPing, being in costume definitely helps.
Yes.
I remember one that I did at an anime convention back in my big anime fan days. I dropped out of that a while ago because I worked in anime for too long, and it soured me to the whole thing. I know, it's terrible. But back in the anime convention days, we did a special live-action role-playing at the convention that we did all weekend long. And basically, it was a very simple system, but what everybody brought into it was you play whichever character from an anime you want to. And so it sort of became like the ultimate battle for ultimate destiny.
Fun. Oh, fun.
But one of my friends who just loves messing with people, he started playing as the character, the irresponsible Captain Tyler.
Oh, no.
Which I guess you know.
Yes.
Other people may not know.
It's kind of an older series, though. So.
It's an older series, and it's about this guy who was a complete slacker, never worked a day in his life, just sort of coasts through life, and somehow ends up failing his way into the captainship of a major starship. And the entire premise of the series is that he just doesn't know what he's doing. He will slip and fall, and somehow he will destroy the enemy. and so he built the character's stats based on that. And so he had insane luck.
Here.
Luck was huge. Slack was huge. And
skills probably.
Skills were very limited. But because he had such a huge amount of luck, basically all he did was sit around in the con suite the entire time and tell people to do stuff for him. And nobody dared challenge him because his luck was so dang high.
That's awesome.
It was pretty amazing.
No, I know like Anime Expo and some of the other conventions do like human chess with anime characters sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
when
that,
you move,
that can be fun.
you want to do your character's attack and wear your cosplay, and that's fun.
Oh, that's cool.
I've never participated, but I always kind of want to.
Yeah.
It's always fun to watch.
That sounds like fun. Suzanne is saying now, most RPGs are set up with the idea of aiming oneself towards the next combat situation. True.
Yeah, on the most basic level. I mean, not the most basic level, but that's kind of the essence of it.
Yeah, like you don't want your characters sort of sitting around just like twiddling their thumbs doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the GM comes in and tries to create a situation that they need to get themselves out of, and then hijinks ensue.
Right.
And Suzanne is saying, into that end, several human qualities have to be broken down into numbers. And that's true. And
that's not just for combat situations, it's also for situations of diplomacy.
Yeah.
For situations of negotiating.
Or
just to get the things you need.
Yeah, or even just interacting with people. And so your characters will typically have stats like charisma and intelligence.
Wisdom and strength and agility and dexterity. And
yeah, all that stuff. And
or in the case of Big Eye Small Mouth, body, mind, and soul. Keeping it simple.
That's incredibly simple.
Yes.
I like it.
I mean, that's also because that system is counting on you to do more storytelling. Mm-hmm. It's counting on the GM to be like, okay, so yes, you want to do this, and yes, that's a body rule, but it's something that takes more agility than strength, and your character is like a muscle-bound thug, so he's going to have a disadvantage to that. So that's kind of on the GM's shoulders to keep that, to keep tabs on that sort of thing.
Yeah. And that's,
while a lot of the systems are built more for that.
Yeah. And that's what I find interesting with the Changeling game, because like while you have those stats, there comes a point where you can actually select your own stats from a list of a whole bunch of others and sort of customize your character even further. So, but it's like some are negative, some are positive, and you have to try to balance them out. So I think my character has he's relentless, he's incredibly lucky, he is really good at telling stories, but he's also a klutz. And you can have a lot of fun with that. My GM was telling me that there was one time they did it and the character was a paraplegic ambidextrous archer. I don't know how that worked.
And that's the other thing, like when you're starting out, it can be a good idea to try to create very balanced characters, maybe like one or two stats that are a little bit stronger, but for the most part, try to keep it pretty even. When you create a character who is more extreme and like really bad at some things, it's really a lot more fun. Yeah. Like it takes a lot more kind of, you have to be used to what you're doing, and you have to be ready to fail and embrace failing. Yeah. But then really fun stuff happens. Yeah. It's much, much more entertaining.
Well, one of the characters in our Changeling game.
Yes, Light. I will be at WonderCon.
Yeah, Light is asking, is anyone in the LA area going to WonderCon, and will the One Ring have a table there? I will not be at WonderCon this year. We're talking about having a table there. Some people want to actually do a panel just to discuss the upcoming extended edition of Battle of the Five Armies, but again, that's all speculative. But I'm actually taking a year off of conventions because last year really cleaned me out financially. So I'm taking it easy. Not going to Comic-Con, not going to WonderCon. A couple people from Torn and Dwina as well in the chat are talking me into maybe going to Dragon Con this year.
I've never done Dragon Con, but I know a lot of people who do. It's supposed to be a very fun convention.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. And
Not quite as insane as Comic-Con.
Yeah. Well, I hear it's quite insane in its own regard.
Okay.
But the reason I would try to go this year is because it's probably going to be the last year for a couple of my torn staffer friends, because they want to take some time off from conventions. And I would love to hang out with them and spend time with them when it's not involved with a huge thing like the one party, where we're constantly working and don't really have time to hang out. Well, we briefly had time to hang out the Friday before the party at one of the hotel bars, but we were also just like in our own headspace with the party that we couldn't really like sort of kick back and relax with each other, which was unfortunate. And Dwin is saying, "Come to Dragon Con, I'll crochet you a scarf."
There you
Deal! Deal, Dwina. You sold me.
So, on games, Suzanne points out that a character with low intelligence but high wisdom would be Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah.
He would also not be real good on the strength roll, although he might have decent strength. He
He
carries
would-
that giant pack around.
Yeah.
So let's say
And
higher
he also
strength,
carries
but
Frodo at one point.
that is true.
Yeah.
So I take that back. Higher strength, maybe lower agility or dexterity necessarily.
Ooh, Ava's saying, "I'm going to a LARP con. I'll have a
Really?
booth there, or I'll sell my art and stuff."
Oh,
That sounds
cool.
cool. Well, Ava has the best art in the
Yes.
galaxy anyway.
Yes.
But doing that at a LARP con, that's gonna be you're gonna do very well there. And I also should mention that Ava had some artwork in the auction at the One Last Party.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a special portrait of Thorin that was gorgeous. It was framed,
Nice.
and unfortunately, I asked what the final price was, because it did get sold, what the final bid was. But the lady who was running the auction told me that the bidders take the bid sheets with them when they collect. So I don't know what the final bid was, but I did take a look, and Ava, I will tell you offline what I saw the bids at. I don't want to talk about that here, but it was. She sent it to me, and I held on to it for the party, probably about a month or so before the party, and I can't tell you how tempted I was to just mount it on my wall and then go to the party and tell everybody, "Oops, sorry, I lost it." So yeah. So we're talking about characters and all their different quirks. One of the interesting ones that is going to make it very interesting for the Changeling game that we're going to be doing. One of our characters she's playing a character from a race called, I believe they're called the Pukas. And one of their quirks is that everything they say is a lie.
Oh, that's a challenging but fun sort of character to play.
Yeah.
Everything they say is a lie.
Everything she has to say has to have some sort of untruth in it, which is going to be very difficult. But she says she's up for the challenge, so that should be fun. And as far as like the storytelling aspect with games goes, like I mentioned, Gloom, the company Atlas Games also has another game that is really like purely a storytelling game called Once Upon a Time.
I don't know that one.
It's a card game as well, but the way it works is sort of like the old games you would play when you were kids, where somebody would start a story, hand it off to somebody else, they'd continue it, and it would keep going that way.
Mm-hmm.
But the way it works is somebody starts the story with a card that specifies something they need to talk about. And then they start creating that story. They start narrating that story. And then somebody else plays another card with another thing. And then they pick up the story and keep it going. And it creates some very interesting tales.
Yeah,
like,
I bet it does.
Will Wheaton did it on a tabletop with Amber Benson and Jane Espenson.
Oh, wow.
And they're already great
been
storytellers, and yeah, it was incredible.
That must have been amazing.
It was unbelievable, because like they would play a card and they would take it in directions you never expected them to take it. So yeah, like that.
I mean, that puka just makes me think again about like the challenges of storytelling and role playing games. And I'm thinking again about how much fun it can be when you fail.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's like in our Champions game, we had a character who was a teleporter. She was a very good teleporter, but at one point she failed her role and she teleported herself into the middle of a bunch of, I believe it was toys. But basically, she manifested and had all this stuff half in and half out of her body.
Yikes!
In a way that you would hope the teleporters would have some sort of protection against, but when you botched your roll, maybe it doesn't work that way.
Oh no!
And our other character, the Hellhound, found her and tried to help, but he's a Hellhound, so first he tried to like pull the toys out of her body, which didn't work so hot.
This is a terrible way to die.
And then he accidentally, while he was doing that, it triggered something in her power suit that she was wearing that was sparking. And it seemed dangerous, and like it might have been smoking and sparking. So he shoved her into the closest shower, because what you want to do with an electrical fire is pour water on it. And he turned on, because he's a dog, so he turned on the water, and she exploded.
Wow.
So...
Those are some really botched roles. Either that or you just really hated this character.
No, we did not. We did not. And the thing that was the worst was that this character was built to resurrect when she died. But she died too much.
There's a line you don't hear often. She died too much.
She'd already died once and come back. And this time there was not enough left to resurrect.
Oh my god.
Like, she not only was accidentally killed, she was obliterated. So, that's the sort of thing that botched rolls can do. If you're really, really unlucky and the dice really hate you.
Oh my god, yeah. Botched rolls can be a lot of fun.
I also created a character who was supposed to be a fighter one time, and for some reason I could not roll for her to fight. So she had the stats, but every time I rolled, it was like she couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. I have no explanation. Just, she was obviously not meant to be a fighter. I thought I was making a fighter. Clearly the dice had other ideas.
Yeah,
So,
I think, like, as far as, like, storytelling goes, botched rolls are probably the most fun, because then you can get really creative with just how badly you failed at doing whatever you were trying to do. Like, a botched roll or just, like, a huge, like, high roll can create just wonderful creative possibilities. Like,
yes.
Like, somebody is an archer and takes a shot and rolls, like, a 20. And then the GM can say something like, you loose the arrow, it goes through one orc, spins around, comes back to another orc.
Yep. Yep. The dramatic
and then you have
successes.
And then you have the exact opposite, like this character's horrible death.
You shoot the arrow, it bounces off a brad in the orc's armor, ricochets off of a nearby pole, and kills the guy next to you. Oops.
Whoops.
Or, if your GM is kind, maybe it only maims the guy next to you.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
It's kind of more fun when the GM just sort of will destroy things just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure
critical
Barry...
successes are fun, too, because Barry really likes it when we fail. So he's really unhappy when we roll well. So if you roll really well and you look at Barry and he gets that face of like, oh. And then he has to come up with some way that you really succeeded and ruined all of his fun for the day.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Barry does love wreaking havoc on people.
That's GMs for you.
Yep. Our GM is probably not as sadistic as Barry, but he's still fun.
I'm not even sure if sadistic is the word, but I'm not sure what the word would be.
He delights in Schadenfreude, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Maybe.
That's about all I can come up with. I'm not. Barry himself is a wonderful, beautiful human being, and I love him to death.
Yes. But once you've been playing with him for a little while, you learn to watch for those expressions of like, oh, we just foiled his attempt to ruin us.
Which I guess has to be sort of
Like, oh, he's
invigorating
smiling.
on your
He's
part.
smiling. He's smiling. What did I do? What happened? He's smiling. Oh God. So.
Oh boy.
So some GMs, you get to know your GM,
Mm-hmm. So.
and you also kind of learn what you can get away with. You're like, oh, I want to try to do this. Well, like one of the things about Barry, he's a big comic fan, so he likes it when you can come up with an interesting theatrical way to use your powers and to describe what you're doing, make it interesting. So instead of just saying like, I'm gonna use my, eyes of Thea, and I rolled a this, and I succeeded.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be like, okay, so I'm gonna try to, use the focus on my visor to deflect the beam around here, and just, I foiled. Oh, Suzanne said, Eve, you just foiled his attempt to ruin us. Barry, haha, no, you didn't. Yeah, I don't think we ever completely foil him. He's always got a backup plan. Like I said, he's been doing this for a while. He's always one step ahead of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I leap in the air and do this sideways, and use this to get through the shield. The more interesting and creative and thoughtful you make it,
Yeah.
you might squeeze a little better success out of it.
Yeah. So we're coming up on an hour, so I don't want to go too much over that. But the reason I was talking about role playing games, first of all, was to bring Eve back on with something that we knew she could talk about, and
I
and
wouldn't
also
have been much use during the horror ones.
yeah. Well,
I'm a wimp, so
we're not going to go into horror again until October, so there's plenty of time.
Okay. So book out October, right?
Yeah. But the reason also that I talk about role-playing games is because there is such a strong storytelling aspect to it, and I believe that there's lots of books that can come from it. There's lots of books that go into it. And one of the things that I love talking about on this show is just storytelling and creating new worlds and creating characters and creating some new adventure or something like that. And I feel that role-playing games are sort of like a great incubator for that.
Yeah, and you were talking about people who take their game characters and then go on to create books and stories about those characters. And I also, in a lot of the games that I've done online, because they're characters based on established properties, it's kind of the opposite. You take a character that you know and love, and you take them in directions that their original setting would never have allowed them to experience. Like, in a pan-fandom game where you have, like, characters from Merlin meeting characters from Star Trek, meeting characters from Marvel Comics, meeting characters from Bones.
Yeah.
And suddenly they're exposed to all these brand new, bizarre experiences. So, and it really does stretch the creativity because you want to keep them in character while dealing with these totally new situations. So that's one of my favorite aspects of it.
Yeah. And all that stuff can sort of translate into other stuff. Like there was a Doctor Who Star Trek crossover comic that was out for a while, and something tells me that
there's a new one now.
There might be.
I think I saw it at Gallifrey, and I think it was new.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and Dwina was saying something about sliding through a door and getting the donut of non-hunger. Which, okay, I actually have a funny.
Missed the build up for that one.
I think I do have a funny donut story that is gaming related.
Oh, really?
This was back when we were playing Magic the Gathering. A lot of us would create our own customized cards, and a lot of the cards in Magic the Gathering have like little quotes on them from various different writers or different books or stuff like that. And so one of my friends created a card called the Almighty Donut. And the reason he called it that
sounds more like a Munchkin card.
The reason it was called that was because one of the cards that you can play is called a Circle of Protection, which will protect you against spells from a specific type of magic, and there are 5 different colors of magic. And so you have a circle of protection for white, or a circle of protection for blue, or green, or red, or all that stuff. The Almighty Donut was a circle of protection for all 5.
Oh, nice.
And
very nice.
And so, and the quote on it was, Donuts. Is there anything they can't do? Homer Simpson.
Okay, that's pretty good.
It was pretty hilarious.
That's pretty good.
And everybody hated it because once somebody played that, they were pretty much invincible.
Oh, Suzanne also said, like, when you fail your die roll, the game master's job is to verbally come up with how that looks creatively.
Yep.
And I kind of wanted to add on to that because, especially if you do a spectacularly bad die roll for something that you're supposed to be good at,
Mm-hmm.
you have to kind of trust the GM to, like, not just say, oh, well, I guess you suddenly spontaneously suck at that. Like, a good GM will have to be like, well, either you're still, oh, I guess your arm is still hurting from that wound you took in the last combat, or, you know, suddenly something bumps you when something runs into your field of vision. They'll try to come up with some kind of out for your character to explain why they just screwed up so badly.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm getting a lot of warnings for drop streams here, so maybe I should bring this to a close.
Get well again, it's good.
Yeah, but thank you, everybody, for chiming in. Suzanne and Barry for adding your insight. Thank you,
Yes.
Eve, for coming.
Thank you for having me back.
Yes,
it was
of course.
good to be back. I
You're
miss doing this.
You're welcome anytime you want to come. And
Thank you.
I'll probably be asking you over a lot because otherwise I'll have nobody to talk to. I am a sad, lonely man.
Listen, anytime.
Thanks. So thank you, everybody, for all the wonderful input.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And remember that our book of the month for March is Middle Earth Madness by theonering.net. What? And I will see you all next week, where we'll be talking about something. I'll figure it out. I will see you all then, and never stop reading.